as a civil engineering contractor, we're actually facing the same problems. And the question is, how do we mitigate the inflation risk and safeguard our businesses to ensure that our businesses stay alive? And my key thing, which I can share today, is we need to understand and manage the project cycle. That's really what I want to emphasize on. And what do I mean the project cycle? What I mean is there is a life cycle for every project. There's how it starts, there's how it runs, and then there's how it ends. And so one of the biggest strategies that we have tried to implement as Dika Construction Company is to try to manage this cycle as best as we can. So allow me to just share a little bit insights on the cycle itself. I'll speak about project entry. Project entry is basically how you start a project. And my colleague there, Benjamin, has said something very interesting, and which is exactly what we do, which is to ensure that you know which client are you going to deal with. I mean, it's not every project that you see in the papers that you need to jump for. My team here, my QS and the team here, they'll tell you that they'll throw to me a lot of adverts that they see in the papers, but we get to decide which one is worthwhile giving your attention. So it's very important for you to screen and know which client you're going to be dealing with from experience, also getting information from other people, how they've managed to deal with these different clients. So it's very, very important to understand that that's part and parcel of project entry. How are you going to get in? I mean, who are you going to be dealing with? You got to know the person you're dealing with. And then, as I've put up, as is laid on the screen there, we've got price according to the market conditions. This one I really want to emphasize to say that we're still on project entry, that we need, as QSs, as engineers, we need to price according to the market conditions and be realistic. Don't leave it to memory. I've noted, and it's a very common trend, that most QSs and most engineers will do things by memory. If I ask the group today, the QSs, to say, okay, what is the price of concrete, class 3020? Most of you will give me an answer. That answer is based on experience. But as we've rightfully discussed here, the trends are changing. The prices are changing every day. So how does that price from memory become valid today? What this simply means is we have to move from relying on memory, but rather we have to get to a point where we rely on data. We need to create templates. We need to create platforms where we can input data, and that data can give us answers that we need at a specific point in time. And so our pricing, we need to make sure that we're pricing according to the market conditions and be realistic. Secondly, we need to check and understand all conditions of contract related to pricing. We really need to take time as QSs, as engineers. That's what I encourage my team, and that's what my team does, to read the contract document. We're living in an environment which is very, very erratic, so you cannot afford to do business as usual. You have to read that document and understand all conditions of contract that are related to pricing. What I'm specifically meaning here is one simple thing. I always ask this question with my team. Does the contract have price escalation? You have to know that from the word go. That's not something that you should be taken unawares at contract negotiation. You must know that from the word go. So check, analyze, and get to know that. And then thirdly, analysis of unit rates. I would say this, and I'll say this over and over again. This is a make or break. Analysis of unit rates is a make or break. You have to spend time to make sure that you've done the analysis of unit rates. I'm sorry, can I ask the secretariat to, the slide that they're showing and what I'm saying is different? Can they go back to project entry so that we are talking we're on the same language with everyone on board? Thank you. Analysis of unit rates is make or break. You cannot afford to just do mere analysis like the way we. People need to make sure that they do analysis from first principles. They need to understand each cost. Why am I saying this? If you do this well on the project entry, you will see what happens when the project is now in progress. If you analyze well and you give a proper good analysis of unit rates in your tender, it is going to either make you or break you. And then let's get into, from project entry, we go into the project itself in flight. We are in the project. What do I advise? The strategies: keep records, keep data, follow trends. As QSs, as engineers, we have to keep records. Remember, you did an analysis of unit rates. You had a build-up. From that build-up, you had certain data that you used. You have to keep the records, understand the trends, know what's happening. If there are changes, be able to factor that in and see what is happening. That will guide you over the next decision you're supposed to make. Second of all, follow the procedures, outlines for the relevant claims. Our contracts have got all these clauses that are there in terms of early warnings and whatnot. If you have a contract that's got an escalation clause that will allow you to claim escalations, there is also a procedure that you need to follow. So I always say this to my team: know the contract document, understand it. Get to a point where if I can ask you today what is clause 43.1, you should be in a position to say it, to know what it talks about, at least have an understanding of it. Gone are the days where QSs are just limited to just looking at the figures. You must understand the contract as a whole. And so if you understand those procedures and outlines, you'll be able now to bring them out as the contract is going. Because I've seen in my experience, there are some cases where a contractor has got a valid reason to make a claim, but the claim is thrown away due to grounds of technicality. What it simply means is you did not follow the procedure. You cannot afford to have such a scenario. So follow the procedures. And third of all, after following the procedures, invoke the clauses when need arises. When you're in the contract, it's a contract. The contract is there to guide everyone. Invoke the clauses when the need arise. If there is a warning to be written, let it be written. If there's a claim that needs to be followed, let it be followed. Make sure that you are invoking and doing the things the right way, which leads me to the next one, which is claim accurately. Understand your claim. Don't just push in a claim based on what you feel or what you think. Your claim must be based on the data that is in the contract, the data that the market is providing. Taking us back to what I said, keep records, keep data. So you must be able to claim accurately based on what even the contract specifies. The contract will specify explicitly what method to use if you're going to be claiming escalations, for example. Are you using indices? Are you using based on analysis of unit rates? What exactly are you using? So as a QS and an engineer, you must be in a position to use this accurately. If you cannot, what's going to happen is you end up losing a lot of money because you don't know exactly what to do, when to do, and how to do it. And I say it again, analysis of unit rates is make or break. When it's in the contract, project entry we've got in, we're now in the contract, it's time to claim. It goes back to analysis of unit rates. There's typical examples where I've seen on an analysis of unit rate on the material cost, for example, for concrete, someone says the material cost of concrete, on the material cost, there's 10%. How is it possible when concrete is material based? There's some things that are material based, there's some things that are fuel based, there's some things that are equipment based. So the weighting in the analysis of unit rates must be realistic. If it is wrong, when you're in flight, when you're in the contract and it's time to claim, it's going to break you. So even though you did an analysis, but that analysis was wrong, it will break you. Then I'll take you to the last part of every contract. We all want a contract to end well, but there will be some contracts that may not end well. My brother there, Benjamin, was speaking about when you get into a contract, and some of these contracts will be bad. That takes us to the exit. Here, we must be able to work by the contract. Contracts are beyond feelings. People's feelings will dictate that a contract should end. They don't care whether you as a company will go down or that will be your end of your contract. All they care about is that the job must be finished. But is that realistic for you as a contractor? You must be able to work by the contract. It's beyond feelings. Follow a contract. Seek mutually beneficial exit. Our contracts give provisions of mutually beneficial exit where you see that as a contractor, this contract will take you down. Follow the right procedures. Seek for a mutually beneficial exit, which allows the client and you as well as the contractor to come out of the experience unscathed. Well, unscathed may not be the best answer because the truth is both of you will be hurt to some extent, but it's still mutually beneficial. But seek an exit that allows you to leave amicably, but you have to make that decision. Fight the right battles. It's not every battle that you have to fight. There are some battles you have to accept to say, this is a battle that I will have to fight another day. So as a contractor, you should be in a position to be able to walk out and know that you cannot take it anymore. Allow me to stop there for that first question. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing with us some of the strategies that contractors can implement. So apart from these strategies that contractors can implement, I think some people have suggested that maybe if the contract itself was pegged to a foreign currency, it could help. So, in your opinion, is this really a solution or not?
Thank you. My being here is really to share my experience. So my answer to that question is yes and no. Why do I say yes and no? I'll try to explain. The thing is, our pricing on the market, I think QS Patrick was explaining about inflation. He explained how things are priced on the market. And you see that our pricing of things on the market are priced not based on the formal market. When I say formal market, that's the exchange rate you get from the bank. Most of the pricing that we have in this country is done by the parallel market because that is where they are able to get the forex to buy the goods and commodities. So they price against that. So when you and me peg it to the dollar, this is what happens, and this is from experience. You will get paid. I'll give an example of a contract I was being paid in dollars. You get paid in the dollars, correct? You get paid in the dollars. But this is what happens. You get the money comes to the Reserve Bank. We have what we call the foreign exchange policy. Our foreign exchange policy dictates that I cannot sell my foreign exchange to anybody else. The first person I'm selling to is the Reserve Bank of Malawi. And according to the foreign exchange policy, 30% of that money in the 48 hours upon receiving is converted to Malawi kwacha. And it's converted at the formal exchange rate. What this technically means is I have done some work. It's in dollars, but I'm exchanging that dollar to the price on the formal market, which for argument's sake, I'll say 1,751 today. I'll change that into Malawi kwacha. Then I am supposed to use that Malawi kwacha to go and buy a commodity, which the supplier is pricing at 3,000 kwacha. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make any business sense. And so it does not give you any leverage at all in this type of environment that we have in Malawi. Maybe it can give you leverage when the difference between the formal market and the parallel market is not too much. So our contracts here in Malawi are exposed more to the black market than to the formal market. So pegging it to the dollar, my brother Benjamin also said to say, at the time you're trying to peg, which rate are you going to peg to? Like I said, the people on the market are pricing according to the parallel, and the parallel keeps changing. So if it keeps changing, which rate are you going to peg it to? And also let's keep in mind that there's competition out there. So how far can you go to a point where you're still competitive to get a job? So you find that pegging the contract to a dollar may not be in the best. It's not a solution, but in some cases, I can also give an example. It does give relief. I've had a contract before where it was pegged to a dollar. We suffered for a while, but then the government decides to devalue on the day of devaluation before other factors start changing. You will get your relief. But beyond that day, after that day, you're back in the same boat. That's why my answer was yes and no. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I think we have a good understanding of the impact of picking the contract to a foreign currency. If you could share with us, in your experience, any successful pricing strategy that employed.
All right, thank you. Well, I think when I saw that preamble question, I asked to rack my brain to say, what is best beyond having a contract that allows price fluctuation? I think our colleague Tawani said it rightly to say we have to get to a point where we accept as a market that our industry is too fragile for us to have fixed contracts. It's too fragile for us to have contracts that do not have the escalation clause. The best pricing strategy that can be allowed in this environment is to have a contract that allows price escalations. I hope through this webinar that we have people from the clients, we have people from the different sectors, and I know my friend Tawani mentioned about consultants sometimes behaving as if they don't live in Malawi and they live in Europe. We have to face the reality. And the reality is we need to have contracts that are flexible, that are fluid. So one of the strategies is dynamic pricing. You have to price in real time. You have to price based on the actual market prices. That is one of the strategies. And when you do this, when your contract has got an escalation clause, it allows you to move with the contract and to move with the environment. Another strategy which I've used before is balancing of contracts, US dollar contracts and Malawi kwacha. Remember I said about pegging to the dollar may not be 100% safe, but it does come with benefits. There are some contracts you may get that are paying you in US dollars. If you do have contracts in Malawi kwacha, you are able to balance these contracts. What do I mean? What I mean is the contracts that are in Malawi kwacha, if they have demands that require foreign exchange to buy things from outside, you'll be able to trade within yourself as a company. What it means is one contract is assisting the other to carry the burdens. In that way, you are making some savings from trying to find the foreign currency. Like I said, when your money comes into the bank here in Malawi, the Malawi government gets 30% upfront. No discussion. You've lost 30%. Let's accept it. But you have the 70%. If you decide to change that 70% into Malawi kwacha, you change it at the official rate, which is a loss. But if you have other contracts in Malawi kwacha, which you require, for example, in my case, bitumen, and I require steel from outside, what I do, I will reserve that money in the US dollar account and I'll maximize on Malawi kwacha. And then that 70% that was remaining, I'll use it for all my foreign purchases. So that's a strategy that can work. But how many of us will get an opportunity to have US dollar and Malawi kwacha contracts at the same time? It's quite rare. The other strategy that we use is price hedging. And I think it has been mentioned by my colleagues. Try to hedge, try to anticipate, try to project. But there is a limit to price hedging. How far can you hedge before you become out of the race, before you're not competitive at all? Because, I mean, you can price as much as you can. But the question is, are you going to get the job? Unfortunately, in Malawi, we also are so obsessed with the lowest price. So it becomes a challenge. The other strategy that we have used also is diversifying suppliers. Try to find a range of suppliers. Sometimes when you're dealing with one supplier, they can also take advantage of situations. Diversifying suppliers allows you to get prices from different suppliers. And in the event of a market like ours, you're able to negotiate sometimes with other suppliers, or you're able to use leverage of a price of one supplier against the other to drop prices down. But this strategy also comes into conflict with the other strategy that my friend Katola shared, where sometimes having one supplier also gives you leverage to negotiate, to get advanced collections and things like those. So you must, as a company, you must be able to weigh, strike a balance. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. And lastly, use the escalation clauses. The clauses are there to protect you. Use them. Like I said, it's a contract. It's beyond feelings. So it is what it is. Let's use them. Thank you.